Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Everybody, like and share the show, like and share the show. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Let us talk about the Democratic National Convention. It is now over, and now the campaign has started. Boy, oh boy, who would have thought 4 weeks ago that we'd be here? No one knew. No one knew. Maybe someone else knew because as I've been reading reports from Sam Husseini, the brilliant journalist, it was odd that the debate that did Biden in was held so early. Everybody has known that he's been struggling, not with age. People don't mind you slowing down with age, but they worry when you look like you're ill. And that's kind of what we've been dealing with. And I was doing the local PBS affiliate here in Chicago last night. And don't you be fooled, because I was with oppositionally. It was a very, very lovely gentleman who's a Republican who represents Peoria, uh, just outside of Chicago, Attorney Darrell Jones. And they have their talking points. And they were not mere talking points. He was making some salient points, and we have to be clear on that. Don't be fooled. Don't think that the Republicans have no strength. They have a lot of strength, and there's a lot that we're going to have to push back against. Okay, I'm getting feedback now. There's a lot that we're going to now I don't have it. There's a lot that we're going to have to push back against in order for Kamala Harris to get over the hump. Can we do it? Absolutely. But I think you need to understand, God bless you, Reverend Dr. Wilson. You need to understand what we're up against. But I want to know what you thought of her speech. It was interesting how she really calmed the crowd down. She said, "Okay, I hear you. Look, let's get down to business." You saw another side of her, a side that we have not seen. And so we need to talk about all of this and just what are your takeaways from this convention. Everybody like and share, like and share. This is Santita Jackson on on AM 9 show, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Santita Jackson Show. We are on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Everybody, I need you to get those thumbs up. Lorraine, thumbs up. Ashley down in Memphis, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. And everybody, please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page and become my friend. That is the only place where I can become your friend, because the other landing page continues to kick people off. I am not doing it, everybody. That's Facebook's doing, not mine. Okay, so go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page for those of us who are a little older, like myself. And, that's as far as we're going with social media. Attorney Darrell Jones, Facebook, because everybody on there is old as the hills and the dirt underneath them. And I'm not mad. While our young people have gone on to other platforms. So please meet me there. And of course, Twitter at Santita J, at Santita J. So let's get to it. What do you make of the convention? What are your takeaways? And how do we win in the fall? I mean, not just the presidency, but we now understand from 2000 on, I think in a very special way, Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, and Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, the head of Push Excel, an advisor to Reverend Jesse Jackson. We now see the power of the states. I mean, your state legislators are very powerful. You understand why Mike Madigan sat right where he was in Illinois, because he was one of the most powerful politicians in the country, someone you'd never even heard of. And these local politicians control a whole lot. Alderman Ed Burke here in Chicago, Alderman Ed Verdoliak. I mean, when Donald Trump came to town, he had to hire Ed Burke, because Ed Burke is Chicago. Whatever his legal issues are, he knew that he was not going to get into Chicago unless he went through this guy. So don't think that your vote doesn't matter, everybody. It really, really does matter. And we really need to begin to run for office locally, because really that's where the power is. Your governor is basically the president of the state. The Chicago budget comes from the Cook County Board of Commissioners. It does not come from Washington. Every dime that we get to spend comes through Toni Preckwinkle, one of the most powerful elected officials in the country. She's a black woman. And she's just, I mean, she's a former teacher and she has the demeanor of a teacher. And it's what I love about President Preckwinkle, who's president of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, is that she still has the disposition of a teacher. And all of her former students, Attorney Jones, they love Miss Preckwinkle. They can't even call her President Preckwinkle because they love Miss Preckwinkle. She was really a wonderful, wonderful teacher. She's also now one of the most powerful elected officials in America today, and you don't even know who she is. The reason we have Brandon Johnson is because of Toni Preckwinkle. She took him under her wing and he helped to make him mayor. Now that's real. For all of his organizing, she did that. So, but there's a lot. I mean, we have seen more of Kamala Harris um, uh, than ever before. And so, what do you think? And what about the press conference? Many people are saying that she needs to speak to the press, and I agree. Because there's some things, Reverend Dr. Wilson, that she needs to be able to contextualize some outstanding issues with respect to incarceration, and because these are real issues for her, and I think that if she takes them on, she can become even stronger, and I think she's fully capable of that. That's the good news. So, everybody, what do you think? Because this is no longer a convention; it is now a TV show. When you walked into the convention hall, for want of a better term, it felt like when I went to see Barbara Streisand at the Garden in New York. When my father and I walked in, I said, "Dad, oh, this must be a television special." He said, "How do you know?" I said, "Because it's a sound stage." I mean, 20 odd thousand people, you could hear a pin drop. And everything was very, very sharp and very bright. Same thing when you went to Oprah Winfrey's party. You were like, wait a minute, I know this is a banquet, but it's a sit down dinner, but this is a sound stage. And that's really what this was. You had John Legend, you had Pink. I mean, you had the stars out. And then you also had people who were supporting Palestine crying in the hall. So there's a lot. You had Uncommitted who walked away trying to figure out what's next. So, let me start with you, Reverend Dr. Wilson, a member of the Divine Nine, specifically your sorority. And to her credit, she has been talking about the Divine Nine, about all of us, because we're all together. We laugh and joke with each other, because you're part of the Divine Nine too, Carol Jones, as we all are here. I mean, the fact is, it's we're all public service sororities and fraternities, and those of most of us take that very, very, very seriously. And so it was a point of pride, I think, for all Black people to see this woman who is Black and South Asian, and she should not have to deny her mother. Everybody, her mama, really? Mm-mm. No. um it is a point of pride, but you can't stop there. I mean, that's lovely, but the fact is, we need some money in our communities. We need our Black banks back. They're gone. That's how you got the loan for your house. That's how you were able to send your kids to school, because the Black banker understood the pressure that you were under, and they would give you some space that other bankers would not. Can I get an amen, Reverend Wilson?
Yes.
So well, I mean, and understanding the importance of down ballot voting. But let's just back up. What did you make of Vice President Harris's speech? And do you think that she and Governor Walz walked out of this convention stronger as a brand?
First of all, thank you for having this review of last night or this week. First of all, I want to thank Mignon. That is the most well-produced, choreographed convention I have ever attended. I mean, they had a theme. They had messaging that was consistent by all of the people that spoke. And I think that getting to Kamala Harris, they had built up different elements of the story, the messaging. And so I think that was powerful. I believe her speech was comprehensive, and it tried to indicate this is who I am. I come from a very humble background. I'm a daughter of an immigrant, and she laid all that out. But she spent more time talking about where we are going, and I thought that was good. As it relates to the Palestinian issue, the thing that was interesting, all of us were sitting after she said, "I love Israel. I will always support Israel." We're like, you cannot leave out Gaza. You cannot leave uh, our people there. And so she did include them. Now, many people were upset that they did not put someone of Palestinian descent on the stage, as they had the Jewish mother crying about her son remaining a hostage, which all of us felt her pain. And so I think much of, as you know, these conventions and these delegates, nominees, are handled. And you start being handled from the time you are considered a nominee.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to have to break away from the mold in some sense in order to deliver what I believe she wants to do for a broad swath of people. And so last night was the first start of, look, I hear you. I see you in Gaza. I see the pain that was caused. It's not just we're praying for Israel. We're praying for that whole region. They absolutely wiped out an entire country without remorse. And so I think that she will have to, speak to a lot of these issues. I think she has the strength of understanding the world in a much more detailed way than many people who run for president, because she's been in the situation room. She's sat behind and had an opportunity for 3.5 years to listen and hear what's going on. It's one thing to talk about what you would do, but to actually see how the person that you're following in terms of structure, how things are being handled. She had a great opportunity, and I think she's the most experienced person running for president that we've had in recent history.
I mean, and she's someone who, as a Black woman, won statewide office
Yes.
twice. That is, to do it one time, and in the most populous and diverse state in the union.
Yeah.
That's already enough of an accomplishment.
And I think she hears. I mean, she hears the issues. I'm sure she was aware of what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
It was very difficult for her to pivot completely, but she had included her concern for Gaza in her speech.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they didn't put someone on the stage as they should have, but that's the people that handle the situation, trying to look at the themes, and she's going to have to lead them a lot more if she.
Jeanette, that was a big miss.
I agree.
You can't just put the Israeli families on the stage, and they needed to be on the stage because we are at the center of this.
We agree, but she didn't. I don't see it. That's what I'm saying. She's being handled.
Yeah, no, I get it, but you know what?
So she's gonna have to.
People don't read it that way, and that's the tough part.
But what made Reverend unique when he ran, it was difficult for them to handle him. You remember this? He would even jump out of the car with the Secret Service. Man, you can't jump out. We have to open your door. He's like, I got to get out.
Oh, stop!
You remember that? I'm like, Reverend.
Well, but you know what? Reverend also came from a different place. Number one, Reverend was free enough to do that because Black people sent him. This new generation of leaders are people who've been sent to us.
Yeah.
And they've been approved and vetted. Reverend was approved and vetted by us. That's a whole different tradition out of which he operated. And if we want that again, because we don't have that now, we have to understand also, we have to mature and grow up in our politics and understand that even as we love her and pull for her to make it, Reverend Dr. Wilson, Esquire, because no, I mean, I'm not funning you. You wear a lot of hats, and you do that brilliantly. I mean, you are a pastor in addition to everything else. Then we have to to see, what it's like to walk away from a campaign where you have given it your all, and to be devastated, and to be rejected by a party, the Democrats namely, who are demanding that you vote for them. And if they lose, it's your fault. That's a bitter pill to swallow. And what we have to do, but Reverend helped us to see, he preached us out of that and said, no, no. Number one, he didn't make it about himself. I mean, all this stuff. I'm explaining to people. You can explain this as well as anyone because you've been in it. You were part of the
I
campaign,
think the
right?
difficulty she has, and you know this, as a woman,
Yes.
there's a different standard, different level of expectations, and even a different level of fellowship. And so I was praying that they would put someone from Palestine on that program.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, they should have done it right after the Jewish lady cried,
Mm-hmm.
then the Palestinian mother could cry for the devastation that has occurred there. I wanted to hear about Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the devastation on an island that gave us freedom, and we've not mentioned it. So there's a lot that we have to push
Mm-hmm.
for, and I think she's more open than any president we've had.
Mm-hmm.
But
So
we're
what
going to
force
have to
do we
push.
have to fight? I mean, because
We got to
people
fight.
know.
We've got to
Okay.
push, and I think that we have an opportunity.
You
I
know
saw.
what? Well, you saw that because I remember Reverend was about the only, say, high-profile Black leader who pushed for Andrew Young to keep his ambassadorship, Daryl Jones. And um, when he went to see President Carter, because it was a huge firestorm of controversy when Andrew Young was fired, who went to meet with the Palestinian representative at my mother's behest because she had
Yeah,
come back from
the
Lebanon.
Middle East.
So she was so devastated by what she had seen. She, as soon as she kind of took her breath, she went. It wasn't even 2 weeks. She went back. She went to New York to see him, and he would see her. We're all family. And she challenged him. She said, "Look, look, 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 look. We gotta. This story's all wrong over here. They're killing everybody over here, and we're paying for it. This cannot happen." He said, "Jackie, this is the third rail of American politics. If I touch this, even back channel this, I will lose my job." She said, "What job? What's that?" She said, "Hey, hey, hey, hey. What would Dr. King do?" So he went on and met with them, and he was fired, but reluctantly. The President Carter let him go. And when my father went to see him, I mean, just days after he'd been fired, he said, "Jesse," and he pulled this stack of papers. It looked like telegrams. He said, "If you're the only, you're the best known Black leader in America, you're the only one who came to save Andy." He said, "If your people had just given me a fraction of these telegrams, I could have justified keeping him. But I couldn't because you were the only one, and it was like Black folks weren't saying anything, so I had to let him go. The political pressure was so great." What Reverend Wilson is communicating to everybody is there are political realities, and I mean, quite honestly, Vice President Harris is in a place where I can't give her space now, but what I can do is press, and engage in loving critique so I can help her do what I need her to do. And I think that's what we're talking about, Reverend Wilson, right?
Oh, absolutely. And before Daryl gives us this great contextual analysis of
Oh yeah.
everything,
So let me get my popcorn because I can
get your popcorn
right.
because it's coming.
I can
I
rest.
think that Vice President Harris has a tremendous challenge ahead of her. I think she's fit for the job, but what I missed on the stage last night was a voice of a prophetic voice that would help us understand. She's like Esther in the Bible, called at this moment. She's not necessarily clear on all that she's called to do and to say. Mordecai told Esther, who knows, but you are presented here in the kingdom for such a time as this. And I think Vice President Harris, she couldn't have imagined being at this moment. That wasn't her plan, I don't believe. It was God's plan. And so a lot is going to unfold, and God will require us, those who are progressive and understand these issues, to lead the revolution that will keep her and launch her into the presidency.
Well, absolutely. And it's not enough for her to be in the presidency and just sit there, Attorney Darrell Jones. We need her to do some things.
Mm-hmm.
And we're good. And I think we are beginning to understand power in ways that we did not 40 years ago when Reverend got into this presidential space. It's the pressure. I mean, that is why the Jewish community has been so successful
Mm-hmm.
in getting their needs addressed because they press.
And they're a minority of voters. They're not a majority. They're a very small minority.
But they behave like a
They're a
majority.
majority. And that's what we have to have.
They have majority complex. And I say that with all due respect. They will not hear no.
Mm-mm.
And neither will the Italian American community, quite frankly. That's why Columbus statues are up everywhere. I mean, Darrell. I mean, I think we have to really what we are seeing with the ouster of President Biden. We still don't know how that happened. We know that George Clooney, an actor who does not resonate with many of us profoundly, but he did own a nice liquor company that he sold and made a lot of money from. Someone who has a satellite, still don't understand that. Someone who's best friends with President Obama. Okay. He writes an op-ed piece for the New York Times, and people are like, oh, George Clooney said, step down. I'm like, and I said something I cannot repeat here.
Don't repeat it.
I won't. I'm like, okay. And basically, so what? Put something in between that. No, really, because 14 million people voted. And even though their options were reduced, they pushed out Robert Kennedy. It was so inhospitable that Cornel West said, I'm not going to even touch this because this is a mess. So you basically got railroaded into one candidate whose numbers were already at the bottom. But that having been said, things can flip in politics. I'm like, wait, don't push the man out, y'all. I mean, y'all eating your young. This is me. And just because the donors said so. So who matters more here, the donors or me and my little vote? If y'all talking about democracy, one person, one vote. So I see you all have not been telling the truth. How about that? So go on, Darrell. Reverend Wilson and I are going to sit back. Talk to us. Tell me.
Well, Santina, Reverend Wilson, good morning. Good morning to you both. And I tell you, I want to start where Reverend Wilson started. You've got to take hats off and do a bow to Chairwoman Minion Moore with regards to how she conducted this DNC convention, as well as the Bishop Leah Daughtry and what she did with the Rules Committee and pushing things through. You've got to really, really give a major shout out to them on a job just extremely well done. My impression of everything that's happening from this DNC convention, I think, begins with understanding what I think the purpose of the DNC convention was. And what they needed to do is that they needed to introduce Vice President Harris to the country. They needed to define who she is and define the issues and the focus that she was going to bring forward, and why Americans should support her, why they should invest in her, why they should vote for her. So, I think that what they did in her presentation, she came across strong. There was no question that she came across as a leader. She came across as a person that was, what did you say, on day one, ready to step into the role and deal with any major leader of any country around the world.
Darrell, wait a minute. Did you not love it when she said, okay, I appreciate the applause. Now let's get down to business, everybody.
That's it.
Look, I said, you go girl. I mean, look, this is someone I've known a long time. And I was like, because she has to do that. Because she's also addled, if you will, by the fact that she is so good looking. I mean, no, I mean, all of these pejorative references to her are because she is so attractive. Now, mind you, you can't satisfy anyone because to me, Stacey Abrams is a beautiful woman,
Mhm.
but she didn't have the same phenotype, and some people objected to her and natural hair. Well, Kamala has natural hair too. It's just straighter. That's all. I mean, whatever. I mean, but I just had to put that in there because when you talk about looking like you're ready on day one, that's the way she came across.
Mhm.
And but she also gave Power a gentler face, which is something we're not accustomed to. We're accustomed to women feeling like a Barbara Jordan, and Shirley Chisholm didn't do that. She was just very, very much a school teacher. Um, Maybe Maxine Waters has perfected it
Yeah.
because she has mastered that. She comes across as all woman, and you also do not want to play with Aunt Team Maxine.
Mm-mm.
And I think that if she can get that from Maxine Waters, she'll be untouchable. Because Maxine Waters is someone you are very clear you will not trifle with her. Okay, so go on. I just had to say that because it's
No,
like you said something that made me kind of go, "Oh, you're right."
Absolutely.
yeah, but you're right on point. And Santita, one of the things that we've continually said on this show is that Vice President Harris being a prosecutor, Vice President Harris being an attorney general, Vice President Harris being a U.S. senator, all of that would come into show, all that would come into practice, all of that would be seen coming through and exuding as she ran for office. And that's what I think you saw last night. You got to remember, the prosecutor is one of one. And they're going to stand there. They're going to make their case. They're going to believe in their case. They need people to believe in them, and they've got to be strong. No one wants a weak prosecutor pushing
Mhm.
forward on issues that is of a concern for them, particularly if you're the victim of a crime. That's what I think you got from Vice President Harris last night was that strength. The question was, and you call me sexist, call me whatever you want. The question when we have a woman candidate that's running for the presidency is, can I see them standing next to Kim Jong Un? Can I see them negotiating with Vladimir Putin? Can I see it? Can I envision it? What would it be like? And it's really male or female, but can I see that? And I think that with Vice President Harris, very clearly what you saw is someone, she laid down the gauntlet. She called them out and said, we ain't going to have this. I'm not going to stand for this. That was impressive. And I think that came across to most of the American people. This is where we belong. We shouldn't be playing toesy, footsie with these people. We need someone who's going to stand for our principles, stand for our country. And I think that's what she exuded last night. And I was very impressed with that.
And also in the war with Korea. How about that piece? Because we keep forgetting that with Kim Jong Un, we've turned South Korea into our vassal state.
Mhm.
He's in a war stance, sitting on trillions of dollars of minerals. Now, hold on. The richest part of Korea is in the north, because even our position on them is to get his minerals, because he's a 10 toes down supporter of the Palestinians and progressive causes. That's something that does not come that you don't get over here. I mean, Putin. I always said if Ukraine was not going to work, because people in the progressive space all around the world, they have another kind of relationship with him. He's helped to fund them against the West, y'all. So stop it. Because even Obama said to him when he was facing reelection, he said, "Just hold your horses. We can talk better once I'm reelected. Should that happen?" Remember that? So I think we need to all this the demonization of all these people with whom you need to work, because we need to understand that if she works out a deal with her, that does not mean she's betrayed America. Because we're still at war with Korea. We didn't have a peace treaty. We have an armistice agreement. So so I just Daryl, I think that as we're taking all this stuff apart, we need to help people. We need to engage in what they call realpolitik, in English, real politics. The real politics are this stuff is very, very complex. And wait a minute, Daryl, you speak to this now, Reverend Wilson, because I had to hesitate before I called you Jeanette, but she's Reverend Wilson. She's Pastor Wilson. who allows me to call her by her first name in deep, deep, deep private, because I've known her since I was a child. And so she just excuses me because I knew her before she became a pastor. But what we're now looking at, there are a lot of little pieces here. I mean, when you think about her meeting with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. See, I don't want us to underestimate sexism and racism.
Yeah.
Because even though we've had the white women for Kamala have their call, and I'm so happy that they did that, black, white men coming together and saying, hey, we want to support her. No time in our history have they shown up for us. Now things can always change. But when people pull back that curtain, figuratively speaking, in that booth, they've always sided with their tribe, not with our issues. And so let's step back from that a minute. What about, because I'm trying to envision her meeting with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I mean, these are like the big dog white men who are the rugby players on campus, right? I mean, they're the strong men. They don't even let women in that space. Daryl, Reverend Wilson, how many 3 and 4 and 5-star generals are women? And she'd be their boss. And they didn't want Hillary. I think, which does not mean that this is an insurmountable barrier for her. But everyone, I don't want you to lose sight of what she is up against. So even as she takes a lot of twists and turns in terms of positions, she's up against that. She lives in Washington. She's still a vice president. Mm-hmm. So only heaven knows now that she's a Democratic nominee, how these people are treating her in briefings. Like someone might hug and whisper in her ear. Right? I mean, because we've been in enough of these spaces, Reverend Wilson, for people need to know this ain't clean. People bring all their prejudices and biases into the meeting, and you dare not speak about it because it'll get you into a whole world of trouble, Daryl. So, as a man, and you're a very progressive man. That having been said, you understand men and how you think, and in that space, what is she up against?
Well, she's certainly up against a very strong-minded, set of facts that she's going to run into when she's trying to deal with these guys. But it's nothing that Vice President Harris hasn't dealt with previously. Okay. And this is what I mean by that, because I've been the prosecutor, right? I've come out of that circle previously. I can tell you that she has been the top law enforcement official, the top law enforcement person as the district attorney in San Francisco. That means that all the police officers, the chiefs, all of that were under her. She was the chief law enforcement person. She was the chief law enforcement person when she was the attorney general for the state of California. Everything flowed under her. She was it. She was it. So, when we understand that experience that she's already had being in that room, dealing with these, when you talk some of the strong-minded men, in terms of law enforcement, she's been there. She's been in that room. She's commanded that room. She's controlled that room. So when she now goes into the room with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, she ain't gonna see anything that she hadn't dealt with already. And she already knows, the mindset that they're coming from. So I think that what she did last night with regards to that speak, she was showing you that, I got it. I know it. And what's going to be really interesting, I think, Reverend Wilson and Santita, is that, as evidence of showing that she's got it, that she knows how to deal with it, think about what she did with Prime Minister Netanyahu when he came to the United States. She didn't go to hear him speak at the Capitol. She said, no, you haven't earned that right. I will meet with you privately to talk about it, but you haven't earned that right for me to meet with you publicly. That's the type of leader that we need, is someone that will hold, in the tennis world, hold their serve. And that's what she's doing, that she's showing that she can hold her serve. She can hold the serve of America to be certain that, that we are properly represented, that our beliefs, our values are in place. And I think all of that to me, is what came across from her last night. That introduction to the United States, that introduction to the American electorate, that was just powerful. And I think that it was well orchestrated, well done. And the question now becomes, what's next? Remember, she's now flipped the script on the Republicans, because it's the Republicans that are supposed to be law and order. She's now law and order by her background, by her person, and from what she's now said. She's flipped the script on strong military. She's strong military. She's showing that the Democratic Party is strong military. So all of that's it. Patriotism. She's laid that out. Those are supposed to be the core conservative issues. She's now given them a run for, number one, having tried to defend their patriotism and how patriotic they are. And she did it, I think, wonderfully when she brought in Adams Kinzinger to speak on that. So, their world right now is turned upside down. They've got to figure out how to put this puzzle back together.
Yeah, but even then, she's neck and neck with him. While she has made tremendous inroads, it's still a very tight race. And I think that we cannot make the mistake of underestimating how strong the Republicans and Trump are. I mean, the fact is, I heard Soror Marsha Fudge, former HUD secretary, former congresswoman, she said, Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And I'm not saying that the people who were outside of the convention center crying because the Democrats, it was a big miss, but they let you know who's funding the party. When you had the Israeli hostages on the stage, the family representing them, and they should have been there, everybody, they should have been there. But when almost 200,000 Palestinians, and the number's well north of that, because the Lancet study said last month that it was 186,000. Okay. And when you see some of these horrifying pictures, and I hope they keep them coming across social media, you see they're not finding whole people, they're finding body parts. So that's how they're coming up with this. Okay. So when you've got that, and there was a way for them to do that. There was a way. They could have found and they did find a very, very middle of the road Palestinian. They could have done that. You could have had Dr. James Zogby come out, who's an elder statesman, and have him speak to that. There are people with whom they work all the time. James Zogby has been active in that space at the top levels in the Democratic Party for more than 40 years. They could have brought him out to say something about that, Reverend Wilson. So for them, see, my question is, how did that land in Michigan? I can tell you it went splat. So instead of having made some inroads, saying, hey, you know what, we took a little bit of a hit, but we were willing to do it. Now they've got to go to Michigan and explain. Because they're a voting bloc. And they're a voting bloc in Chicago. The greatest concentration of Palestinian Americans is here in Chicago. Greatest concentration of the Arab American community is in Michigan. And these people, they feel that they were disrespected, and they were. You can't do that. I mean, that was the thing. And I realized, and Reverend Wilson, we know she's being handled. We understand that. That having been said.
Well, I think what they had and was a choreographed presentation of her acceptance. And unless you have someone in the room on your team that will raise the flag.
Would you say that?
Wait a minute.
No, would you say that? Say that again.
And you got to have that oppositional person that says, hey, I'm on the ground. Have somebody that I walked in there. I received calls about, are they going to include us on the program yesterday morning. And so you have to hear the voices that you don't see every day, that you don't want to listen to. Just listen to the voice, and it will guide you. And I think part of her team has to include that kind of person that is not afraid to tell you, hey, you're naked on this point. And this is a significant point. I think the media spends a whole lot of time with this comparison between her and Trump. She's live in social media, and you know this. Mm-hmm. I think media is over producing themselves because the masses of people are not paying attention to traditional media at all. So she never has a press conference. It matters to a certain segment, but the larger segment, and Daryl knows this, they listen to your show, they're on social media all day long. They're not watching press conferences, they don't care.
And,
So
and they listen to Daryl's show, Daryl and Barbara Arnwiner on WOL in DC. You can get them everywhere, every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Daryl, would you please start saying that? Help me. I'm feeling like I am with
and
you.
the thing is, Santita, you know, Reverend Jackson, both campaigns ran on the radio because
Black radio.
Black radio. Bishop Willis, remember he had 40 stations across the South.
In Virginia, that's why he won Virginia in '84.
Absolutely.
Because, but also he ran through the Black church, which is still the largest organized
and the Black media.
And Black media, which we don't have anymore. We have Black oriented media, not Black owned media. There is a difference.
It's a big difference.
I mean, well, what's the difference? Explain it to people.
Well, the difference is if I own the station, I can do what I wish. I can put who I want on. I'm not controlled by these sponsors who dictate the voices that people will hear. If I'm owned by someone else, then they pull the strings. I'm a puppet.
Well, you know, but I want people to understand that because Reverend Wilson has been with Reverend about 40 years. Not about, a little more than 40 years. I'm trying to help you out in terms of our age, Reverend Wilson. Hello.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Be quiet. I mean, and I don't know how it is that you're 25, but you know that's okay. But I think that's why I share so much of our experiences. I'm not talking about my daddy, everybody. I'm talking about Reverend Jackson, who's an institution.
Yeah.
And it's only by stepping back from him that I see his genius.
Mm-hmm.
By stepping back, I understand the genius of a Reverend Frank Watkins, of a Reverend George Edgar Riddick. I mean, we've had the best team ever. I mean, these are the people who, Lucille Conway Loman reshaped the Black church. The reason Black pastors get pensions now is because of the work she did at Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church. She reshaped the Sunday school system in the Black church. Mm-hmm. She was the architect of Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church, which is one of the most powerful Black churches in America. They are now in their third iteration. Reverend Evans set things up so brilliantly that since he has passed, there have been two very successful pastors, and the church continues to grow. Mm-hmm. Something to be said for that. She is the architect of that.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's important for us, Mabel Walker, who could catalog like
the memberships
and memberships. I mean, these are the things before you had computers. She was sitting up in that office cataloging everything. And if you wanted to find anyone who Reverend had talked to around the country, Daryl, you could go into Mabel Walker's office and she had everything. She and her daughter, who was a brilliant student, who came out of high school like 15 or 16 from one of the top high schools. Oh, yeah. Aline Walker, who was the youngest board member. She and Dwight McKee were the youngest inaugurating board members of Operation Push. We had these people. We had these people. We had the letter. What did Reverend say? The PhDs and the no Ds. We had them all, and that's why I think it's important for us to share these stories with you, everybody, so that you can understand. Yeah, this is what Kamala Harris is up against when she's in the room, because Reverend we were the outsiders, so we could go into the Democratic Party and say, hey, if you don't watch this, you are going to lose. Now, fortunately, Clinton listened.
He did.
And then he took our staff with him.
For
the most part. Well, except for Frank Watkins, who said, I will never work for a racist. That was Frank. Oh, yeah. No. Frank was like 10 toes down on that. He said, no, not going to do that. But all of the people, Mignon and Regina and everybody, they came out of Push, and then they came out of the Rainbow. But you have to understand that in these rooms, you're not by yourself. So you are having these debates. So what Dr. King had, there was a James Bevel faction of his staff. There was a Ralph Abernathy faction. There were different factions, and my parents came under the Bevel wing, the Bevel Rebels. because my parents were the kids. And so it's important for us to understand that when she's not making these decisions, which is what Reverend Wilson is telling us, she's not making them by herself. She is the head of a team.
Mm-hmm.
What she's missing on her team are the rabble rousers. You've got to have your rabble rousers. And Reverend's never been afraid, Reverend Wilson, of engaging the rabble rousers and having them be on the team.
Well, you remember the Boycott Chicago Fest came from a caller on the radio.
On WBMX, remember?
WBMX, and the guy said, you ought to boycott Jane Burns' coronation, which was Chicago. Well, then it was, they didn't call it Chicago Fest, but that's what it was.
We called it. Right?
The biggest entertainment thing, and Reverend was charged with getting the artists not to perform, Stevie Wonder and so many others.
Wait a minute, hold on. These were the biggest artists in the world at the time, Daryl, because this was the big money maker for Chicago. It had become this Lollapalooza.
Mm-hmm.
It was Lollapalooza on steroids, and a food fest, which is modeled, quite frankly, on Expo, which Reverend started in the late '60s. Jeanette?
That's right. And so when the guy calls on the radio, this is some unknown, nameless, faceless person saying, hey, y'all ought to boycott. So Reverend said, it's easy for you to say that. You don't have to make it happen. He called Reverend Evans. He said, yeah, I think you ought to listen to him. He said, yeah, because you're not going to be marching out there. And he assembled a coalition of nationalists and preachers and everybody and organized this boycott, which led to the election of Harold Washington. Mm-hmm. Mayor Washington did not march with us shutting down that festival, but he was the beneficiary of it. And so I think as I look at this race that we're running in the next 73 days,
yes,
it requires us to talk to the people on the street. You got to hear what they're saying in order to push her forward. This is going to be a real effort, heavy lifting, because the people on the ground, they don't know what we're talking about, and they're not energized yet because there's no money. You got to get that money to flow down.
And lots of it to Black media.
Yes.
But also, I mean, lots of it, because $14 million is not going to get it. Because people are trying to stay on the air. I'm trying to stay on the air. And wait a minute, you don't pay me for my support. I got to pay to stay on the air. Mm-hmm. That having been said, and it's not just me. I mean, you got Roland Martin, you got everybody. You got Tavis Smiley, who's got a station, and credibility in the community. But you also need
Reverend Mark Thompson. I mean, there's just so many people.
There are people you need to
Indigo.
See. Indigo. I mean, and that's just in Chicago. Amsterdam News in New York. You've got Black-owned radio stations down throughout the South.
Yeah,
Super stations. Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot to do, but not only that. Sometimes when people get sponsorship, they begin to tailor their messages, and that's not what we need you to do either.
Right.
We need you to be, because I've got to tell her some hard truths. That's why if I saw her and, as I see some of her staff who, reach out, that was a big miss. And I don't mind saying it because I'm free enough to. And I'm going to tell you that because I want you to win.
Yeah. And
I know that one of the things that we've seen with Reverend Attorney Daryl Jones, Reverend Wilson and I have seen, Reverend has not been afraid to walk into hostile spaces. Mm-hmm. And he's been before the public every day and certainly once a week for almost 60 years. So people would walk in. Oh, I'm getting some feedback. So people would walk in and they would be threatening to shoot him, So we've had to tackle people. I mean, I grew up with all of that. And then you have people shouting you down, I mean, in your building or someplace else. But all of this comes with the territory. Okay, and you learn to, when you have power in particular, you got to handle it very gently, very gingerly. You can't say, I'm speaking. Particularly when you look the way she looks. I mean, even Trump has to bow down and say, she's a beautiful woman. And when you got that, and that is empowering. You got to be real careful with that. And then you got to deal with the issues that we have with what she looks like in the black community. I mean, let's just put it all out here because all this stuff is real. Okay. Then she was in a sorority, black college, all that stuff. Then I also think, like I said, now she's still in office, y'all. Biden will be president about what, 3 or 4 more months.
Yeah.
There's some stuff he can still do and stuff that he's going to do since he got pushed out. So I'm trying to find out, and she's still got to meet with these Joint Chiefs of Staff now because now she gets another. I mean, I don't know how she'd get another layer of briefing, but when you become the nominee, you get briefings. So it's just a whole lot here. And so, because I'm just wondering how they're dealing with her, because when people say things that are very insulting to you, you still have to come out to speak to the people as if nothing happened. And so I don't want us to be naive about what she is up against.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been in the room, as Congressman Jackson said when he was running, and I had to step back and say, wow, Johnny, we have been. He said, oh, yeah, Dad let us see a whole lot. And you would still have to walk out and keep your people lifted and smile.
Mm-hmm.
Dukakis had my family in Boston about a week, days before. It looked like he was going to be on the ticket. He was the highest second place finisher in the history of American primary politics, presidential primary politics. And my mother said, I knew something was wrong because when we got up to their home, they had asked us about these dietary restrictions, and my father's got gout and some other issues. So everything that my father couldn't eat, didn't want to eat, they served. Bless their hearts. And so they had to go out to the Boston Pops and smile. And, because Reverend is really at the zenith of that kind of popularity and power, I guess. And while my father is flying, they never even called him to let them know that they had chosen Lloyd Bentsen. I get to the little private airport at Washington National at the time. And I'll wrap this up. And they said, oh, Miss Jackson, your father's flight will be arriving in about 5 minutes, but you want to step over here? I said, and I knew there was something to it. I said, is Senator Bentsen here? They said, yes, but he's staying in the bathroom. Because I said, I'm not going to do anything that would embarrass him. I said, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay right here until my father lands. You're not going to keep me locked in a room and I can't see him. No, as soon as that plane lands, I'm running onto the tarmac so I can hug my daddy. Because I was trying to fight tears myself because this was cruel the way they did it. Because they said, well, we couldn't get in touch with you, which was an abject lie. I'm free enough. I'm on the radio. I can say it. I'm not going to candy coat it. It was a lie. And yet he had to speak at the NAACP convention that night before about 10,000 people. People are crying. They're upset. And you remember that, Reverend Wilson? They're crying. They're upset. And they're so insulted. And they're like, I'm never going to vote for this ticket. My father said, no. First of all, he had to give a press conference when he got off the plane. I had to tell him when he landed, they've chosen someone else and he's inside. Because he did not know. And when you talk about the insult, don't talk to me, y'all. And then you want to say that I'm bitter about the party. I'm not bitter about the party. I can't be bitter about something in whom I've had no emotional investment. My investment has been in our freedom, and not just Black people. All people. That's what this has been about for us. They talk about insults, and yet he said, I'm too mature to be upset. This is not about me. This is about we. We have got to win. We've got the rules committee. We've got a platform that we still need the Democrats to run on. And that's it. Don't you remember when he was asked whether he was Black or American first by Bernard Kalb? It was Bernard or Marvin Kalb. And you still have to run on that. So I'm telling you, I know she's being insulted privately. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we stand and say, we need you to take this position on Gaza, We need Haiti on the agenda. We need maternal mortality, all this stuff that if we don't do it, she doesn't have the space to push for it.
Mhm.
And that's all I'm saying, everybody. You got to help her, help you. Help her, help you. Just remember that. And pray for her every day. Because when I think of what she is absorbing, because for all of it, let me put it this way: when you see all of the pomp and the circumstance and all of the beauty and all the cheers, you're dealing with the opposite. Personally, you're dealing with all manner of personal insults. And you got to come out before the public and act like it never happened. And you dare not share it.
Mhm.
So, everybody, I think we need to understand that. Everybody, thank you so much. Continue to like and share the show. And we cannot wait until she's elected to push for our issues. You must do it now. Before you get who you want, get what you need. That's how politics works, y'all. I literally have a minute for you, Reverend Jeanette Wilson. What do you want us to know in this minute? Literally.
I think that this is a result. Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris's run is an act of God. No man could have orchestrated all of that has happened. And so God has his hands on her, and we should pray for her, and I will do that. But we also have to work very hard to make sure that our issues are forefront on her mind. Everybody has a lot of things they want. We have to push forward our issues. That's why our convention was around a people's agenda, which we plan to release before the election.
All right now. Daryl Jones, 1 minute. Of course, WOL every Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Go on, get it, and go to Barbara Arnwine, ARNWINE.com. They stream it there as well.
And
Attorney,
thank you, Santita. The Democrats have had a really great week with regards to the Democratic National Convention and pushing the issues forward and the issues of our concern. But I tell you, and Reverend Wilson is great on this. Fannie Lou Hamer once said, you can pray until you faint, but unless you get up and do something, God's not going to drop it into your hands. Folks, you need to go to vote.org because in order for you to be able to get in the ring, to be able to do something, you got to be registered to vote. Check on your your registration status. Go to vote.org, but don't stop there. Be ready. Be prepared. Encourage your friends and your family all to go and check on their voter registration status. This is the general election. Every trick, every gimmick that could possibly come into play is about to come into play now. This is the time. You're going to see the intimidation at the polls. We're going to hear about voters being purged. We're going to hear about challenges at the polls. Go to vote.org to begin with, to be certain that you and your family are registered to vote and you know where you're going to vote. And then remember, 866 our vote if you have any trouble at the polls. We're going to talk a whole lot more about this on what to do in case you encounter something. But for right now, let's be certain that we're in the game, that we're on the bus, that we can get on the train and be able to make it to the polling place to be able to vote when it's time. Thanks, Santita.
thank you. And as Kamala Harris said of her mother said, yeah, you're going to bump into headwinds in life, but don't complain about it. Do something. When you see injustice, don't complain about it. Do something about it. She said, so I modeled my life on that. Everybody, do something. Do the right thing. If you can't vote, get somebody else registered to vote. You can be involved in this process. Get involved in the process. And you know what? And elevate your politics. We don't have time to hate anybody. Because, in our own way, we're all looking for the same thing, many of us. No, I mean, don't demonize people. Try to understand them. Really. Let us grow up in our politics. I know that is what Dr. King would want us to do. And I know my father does not really like for us to speak disparagingly of people. You know that, Reverend Wilson. He doesn't like that, which is why so-called the opposition will show up at the office or they'll show up at our meetings because they know that they can trust Reverend, because for him, it is really about us about becoming reconciled and moving humanity forward and upward. I love you, everybody. God bless you. Can't wait to see you on Keep Up Alive on Sunday. More of this talk. Love you, everybody. God bless you.
Bless you.
Have a great weekend. And thank